Wenn ich esse, ist gar nicht übergeblieben. When I eat, nothing's left over.
It's Friday morning, and a cute little Jewish man, Mr. Joachimflaster, walks into a fancy gourmet delicatessen in Yorkville. He walks straight to the counter and he says, "Excuse me, mister, I would like to buy some lox." And the man behind the counter very condescendingly says, "I'm sorry, we don't have lox, we only have smoked salmon." He goes, "Okay, sorry, my mistake. I'll take some smoked salmon. Okay, and then I noticed next to the smoked salmon, you've got some beautiful blintzes. I'd like to buy some blintzes." He goes, "I'm sorry, we don't have blintzes, those are crepes." "Oh, my mistake, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll take half a dozen crepes. And while you're at it, I'd like to buy a pound of chopped liver." He says, "I'm sorry, we don't have chopped liver, we only have pate." He goes, "Pate? I'll take a pound and a half of pate and we're set. And just one more thing, mister, can you please deliver it on Saturday?" He says, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't deliver on Shabbos."
Two Orthodox Jews go to Pinchas the tailor, and they want to have suits made. And they don't just want any suits made, they want black suits. And not just black suits, but the blackest of black suits. So Pinchas says, "Okay, I'll make you the blackest of black suits." They come back a few weeks later to pick up their suits, and they put them on, and they take a look, and they go, "Yeah, I think they're black. Okay, we're good to go." And they leave, and as they're walking down the street, they see two priests walking towards them. And one of them runs up to one of the priests, and he holds his arm out against the priest, and he's muttering, he says something. He goes back to his friend, and they keep walking down the street, and one priest says to the other, "What was that all about?" And the second priest says, "I don't know, he said something. I'm not sure what he said. It sounded like Latin." And the first priest said, "Yeah, I thought so too. It sounded like Pinchas fucked us."
So there's an elderly gentleman in a hospital bed, and a voluptuous, beautiful young nurse comes in, and she says, "I'm here to give you a bath." And he says to her, "Can you come here for just a second?" And she comes over and he says, "It's very important for me to know, are my testicles black?" And she looks at him and she says, "I'm really just here to give you a bath and just your upper body and your lower legs, so let me take care of that." She gives him a very thorough bath where she's supposed to. She finishes and she figures he's forgotten and she's gonna leave the room. So he calls her over, he says, "I need to ask you, it's very important to me. Are my testicles black?" And she says, "Well, I'm really not supposed to do this, but I will." So she lifts off the blankets, she lifts up the appropriate area, she checks very thoroughly, very carefully, lifts up, looks around, moves from side to side. She's convinced. Puts him all back together, puts the bed back together, and she says to him, "I can assure you that your testicles are not black." And he calls her over again. He says, "I'm afraid you misunderstood my original request." She says, "What was it?" And he says, "Are my test results back?"
A young man called the rabbi, "Please, may I come in for an appointment? I must talk to you." The rabbi said, "Fine." So the young man arrives, sits down. The rabbi says, "So Gerald, tell me, you got a problem?" He says, "Rabbi, I'm 32 years old. I want to get married. I date all sorts of girls, tall, short, fat, skinny, blonde, black, Jewish, non-Jewish, whatever I bring into the house. And these are lovely girls my mother doesn't like. And I want to please my mother. I want her to shep nachas for me. And what can I do?" The rabbi says, "You got a problem, son. However, here's what you got to do. You got to go out, you got to date as many women as you can. Try to find a woman that has a lot of attributes your mother has. If she walks like her, talks or looks like her, does her hair the way, find all the body language that she has. If that woman you find, your mother will love her. Try it." He says, "I'll try, Rabbi." 6 months later, the rabbi gets a phone call. "It's me again, can I see you?" He said, "Come on in." So he sits beside the rabbi. The rabbi says, "So tell me, how did you make out?" "Rabbi, I found the perfect girl. She looks like my mother. She does her hair like my mother. She's got all her movements. She cooks like her. She talks like her. It's everything." So the rabbi says, "That's wonderful. So what's the matter?" He says, "My father doesn't like her."
A plane takes off. The pilot comes on the speakerphone and he says, listen, we'll be flying at an altitude of 35,000 feet. It should be no turbulence, so sit back and enjoy the rest of the flight. And he forgets to turn the speaker off. And he says to the co-pilot sitting right next to him, he says, boy, what I wouldn't give now for a cup of coffee and a blowjob. And the stewardess at the back of the plane hears this, and she runs as fast as she can up the aisle to tell the pilot that he left the speaker on, and somebody in the cabin yells out, "You forgot the coffee!"
Sam turns to Bella in bed, and he says, honey, did you know it's National Orgasm Day? She turns, she looks at him and says, what a pity. Right in the middle of National Headache Week.
So Harry is sitting in the shul. He gets there early for mincha. He's sitting all by himself. The rabbi's still in his study. Nobody's there, and he's sitting. All of a sudden, there's a puff of smoke, and the devil appears. Satan, right in front of him. Satan looks at him and says, do you know who I am? He says, yeah. He says, do you know what I can do to you? He says, yeah. He says, I can make your life a living hell like this. He says, so I hear, yeah. Are you shaking in your boots? He says, no. He says, most people shake when I walk in. He says, no. He says, why? He says, been married to your sister for 62 years.
The first is my late father-in-law's favorite joke of all time. He would tell this joke and then repeat the punchline 3 or 4 times just to show you that it was really funny. Here it goes. 2 successful businessmen, Schwartz and Koerner, are in the Schwartz at the club. They sit on the upper bench, swaddled in their cloths. Koerner says to Schwartz, I hear you had a fire at the factory. Schwartz looks right and he looks left and he says to Koerner, shh, Wednesday. Shh, Wednesday.